Tattoo artists of Reddit. What was the weirdest, most disturbing tattoo a customer wanted? When I worked as a tattoo artist, a guy wanted us to tattoo his name on his infant baby, because as he put it, "She's trying to say that's not my son." We threatened to call the guard because what the actual heck? We wouldn't tattoo anyone under the age of 18, even with parental consent, and we certainly wouldn't tattoo a baby. I had to laugh when I saw the episode of Archer where he and the baby get tattoos. It was a grim reminder. I have a friend that tattooed on herself the word spite onto her leg when she was 14, but anytime she wears socks it looks like it says spit. It looking like spit is the least of the problems with that tattoo. I was getting tattooed and one of the guys at the shop refused to tattoo a couple flies around a girl's vagina and inner thigh. I have a buddy that has his anus tattooed and got it when he was high on shrooms. It's an eyeball. God help whichever tattoo artist had to do that one. I guess you could say they've seen some crap. Not a tattoo artist, but the guy I went to for many years once told me that he had a customer come in, 20 years old and completely sober and very serious, wanting him to tattoo birds flying out of her vagina up to her lower stomach. He told her he wasn't willing to tattoo genitalia to get out of it and she said, "Okay, I'll just take an infinity sign on the back of my neck instead." He saved her from a lot of awkward questions and a lot of regret later in life. I'm not sure anyone with an infinity symbol is necessarily indemnified against regret, but it's a step down from vagina buds anyway. I got a tattoo of Dudley Bob on my butt. To those unaware, Dudley Bob is the character from the episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob finds a pencil and draws a copy of himself. The copy becomes alive and ends up being evil. While I was getting it, I asked the tattoo artist, "So what's the dumbest tattoo you've ever given someone?" His reply, "Honestly, probably this one. I've had it for a few years and have no regrets. Dudley Bob will live on underneath my boxers for years to come. Mihoi Minoi." A friend of mine and I recently discussed getting Dudley Bob tattooed on ourselves. We ended up getting cheese instead, but I still love the idea of having Dudley Bob done, so that's awesome. Not a tattoo artist, but I asked one this question while watching him tattoo my best friend. He said that a guy came in and asked for Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street on the bottoms of his big toes, one on each foot. That's cute. Obligatory, not a tattoo artist, but I did a series of renovations at a buddy's shop over a couple years. I was something like a skilled groupie. Strangest request I saw honored. Guy comes in, looking like a goth thug. He says his mom just died recently and he wants to get a portrait done in her honor. He pulls out an 8x10 black and white nudie pic of his mom. I heard my buddy ask a question like, "Was your mom a burlesque dancer?" The guy, deadpan, says, "Nah, man. Nah, she was a stay-at-home mom." The finished piece was actually amazing, but clearly that family was a bit different than mine. Strangest request I saw turned away. Guy came in with a small group, maybe 4 or 5 people in their early 20s. He wanted a few disembodied dongs floating over a naked woman, spraying her with CM. That guy had a giant dong tattooed on his forearm. My face got a workout contorting through several facial expressions in rapid succession. HIV plus on the shaft of their penis. Apparently they felt it would qualify as informed consent and avoid bringing it up in conversation. But alas, women do not see WIs inside their vaginas. I hope he refused. Not an artist, but the artist I see said he has a guy come in and get naked Disney princesses tattooed all over his body, like think topless Little Mermaid or naked Pocahontas, then gets upset when people complain about them being visible when kids are around. My brother is a tattoo artist and refused to tattoo 2 small pot leaves above my other brother's thumbs. He later got it done by a friend. They look terrible and he wishes he had never done it. He also got a ski mask tattooed behind his ear. My brother said yes to that one because of how bad the pot leaves turned out. Your other brother is a few more tattoos and some hair dye away from being a SoundCloud rapper. Finally, a post I can comment on. I had a pair of dominatrix sisters ask me to tattoo their live-in slave for his birthday as a surprise. It was their names in Chinese, at the base of his dong. They had specifically requested me as I fit into the fetish category of the slave. Being an East Asian lady tattooer, I was to be paid triple for my time. but had one request that I tattoo him at their studio, dressed as a dominatrix while he was tied up bondage style. When I got to their location, it was really sketchy as it was in a random warehouse in a bad part of town. But once I walked through the red door, it was very tastefully decorated with cages hanging from the ceiling along with the chandeliers. They had me dress up in their clothes as we were the same size, while the slave got ready in his gear, none the wiser. When he was ready, after some sort of ceremony where they whipped him for a while, they told him his birthday surprise. He was so excited he was erect by the time I had my station ready. They used to be nurses, so they had the sterile equipment already, hence an easy setup. The ladies tied him up on a padded table and stretched out the area to be tattooed by weighing down his dong and balls with rope and weights. After the tattoo was done, they thanked me for my services, paid me triple along with a hefty tip, and I was on my way. All in all, 10/10 would do it again. This is probably the coolest story. Not a tattoo artist, but I went to school with a girl that got a human heart tattooed on her butthole and it says "eat your heart out." Very interesting. Not a tattoo artist but a health inspector that inspects tattoo piercing establishments had to investigate a complaint about a mother trying to get her 15-year-old daughter's nipples tattooed. Said they didn't look right. No one fortunately would do it because they weren't comfortable looking at a 15-year-old's breasts, but she said she'd just go somewhere else. I had her info from the tattoo place and turned it over to DCS. I used to intern as a body pisser. My mentor was telling me some stories. One day, this guy comes in and asks for his fiance's name in big letters surrounded by hearts on his neck. It was supposed to be a matching tattoo and his fiance would be getting hers after she left work. So as the guy is talking about his fiance, he mentions her name. Everyone in the shop is dead silent. The fiance is the crazy chick my mentor was FWB with. They had such kinky sex. They had a legal document drafted that if something happens to the other during sex, the other person is not legally responsible for it. They're already halfway through the tat. They have a small meeting of whether to finish it and tell him, or just tell him before he's in too deep with the tat. They decide to tell him. My mentor takes him outside and is like, "I'm sorry, dude. Your girl is messing around on you," and shows him proof in their private, very sexual messages. Guy is in tears, but goes back inside to finish the tat. He leaves and a few days later calls the shop and yells at the owner to let him know that their body pisser is forcing women to use sex as payment for thigh piercings. Owner says frick off. Tattoo artist here. While on a canoe trip with my friends, we met a man who was enjoying the river on his kayak. We were all stopped at a small shore and the man commented on how many tattoos we all had. My friends all instinctively pointed to me and said, "She's a tattoo artist." This is not a thing that I like people to know in my leisure time because I then get sucked into a lengthy conversation about the person's cousin's brother's aunt who watched Ink Masters once and wants a tattoo. Anyway, my friends knew this and did it anyway, and the man started telling me that he wants his wife to get a tattoo. The idea he began to tell me was nothing I would ever want a tattoo, or ever would, but it's the closest I've ever come to the weirdest tattoo I've ever done. He described a butterfly on her vagina. Pretty much he explained that when she were to pull apart the lips of her vagina, the inside she wanted tattooed like butterfly wings. So her vagina looked just like a butterfly when spread apart. That was the most awkward conversation of my life, and my friends enjoyed every second of it. That is some serious catnip LSD cocktail tall. Being a lady, it must have been even more uncomfortable for you. Not a tattoo artist but walked by a guy at Coachella who had a rib tattoo of a guy jacking off standing atop a pile of dead bodies. How the herpes doing? Not a tattoo artist but I worked with a lady who had a picture of herself on the cross tattooed on her upper arm. Oh, and the tattoo self was naked, and she was happy cause he made my T bigger on it. First off, all the questions. Not an artist but the guy I went to told me about someone who repeatedly came into the shop and only ever wanted sort of natural marks on his body circled. Nipples were circled, freckles were circled, moles were circled. So the guy just had loads of circles of various sizes on his body. One day he shaved off his beard, found a spot or mole on his chin and came in that day to have it circled. If I recall correctly, the artist eventually turned him away and refused to circle anymore. My first thought was, wow, that would be a great way to check for skin cancer. If it outgrows the circle, see a dermatologist. While I was getting tattooed, I asked my artist the same question. She told me once a guy walked in and asked for a full back piece of a demon bending an old nun over and raping her, and for the nun to have huge feet. It was the only tattoo she ever refused. Good choice. Everyone knows nuns only have small feet. LOL, a couple got Kevin Bacon's face on a piece of bacon on their asses. It was actually awesome though, TBH, and they were super nice people. Honestly, probably the best couple's tattoo. Still good if it doesn't work out, but dang good if it does. My tattoo artist once shared this story of this girl who wanted a rose tattooed around her anus. He refused, naturally, and she whined for a bit before asking him to instead tattoo sweet little thing across her lower back, tramp stamp style. He again refused and kicked her out of the shop. In his words, he wasn't going to deal with that level of crazy for that long. Obligatory, not a tattoo artist, but earlier today my best friend got a tattoo of ET doing a line of coke off his long finger. She also has a tattoo of Chinese symbols which literally translates to cheesy garlic bread. This chick memes. Went on a date with an artist, asked her this question. Her answer is a favorite story of mine to tell now. A girl came in on her 18th birthday. She was dressed super rich and talked like the most dense basic white girl you've ever seen. We asked her what she wanted done and she says, I want a tattoo on my butthole. Comma, what do you want there? I want words around my butthole. Comma, okay, what do you want it to say? I wanted to say Dom's butt s. And she got a butthole tattoo that day. It wasn't done by the woman I was dating, but by someone said at that shop. Not me personally, but I know my ex-stepdad's mother is a renowned tattooist in the UK and she is an immigrant. A guy came in wanting her to tattoo frick off packies on his back. She declined. Guy in my town did a touch-up on a Holocaust survivor. One of the guys I served with, they were from a really fricked up area of the South, had a client come in to have his SS tattoo touched up in the 70s. He did it and they turned the check into the FBI. Caught a war criminal that day. Another story was a guy that had all these weird names he wanted tattooed on his inner thigh. Turns out they were the names of several H that had been murdered and his dad was able to call the cops. Some of the names were for people that hasn't even been reported missing. Guy never got caught. Not an artist but as an eavesdropping customer. A lady who was 8 months pregnant. I still have 4 weeks, it's fine. Wanted her baby's due date down her spine. What if the baby was early or late? After some back and forth with the artist saying he was not comfortable with her being so close to due, they came to an agreement to put it on the side of her neck. Definitely took my mind off my own session. I don't have any weird disturbing stories, but my co-worker tattooed the inside of a guy's dong once. The guy had his penis split down the head and he wanted it bright orange, with either a butterfly or a ladybug. He came in with it pre-wrapped in plastic, filled with numbing cream. My friend said that, when they first got started, he was trying to get a grip on the guy's unit and slipped. As a reaction, he quickly tried to grab it again and his thumb went pretty deep inside the dude's, what's the scientific term? Dong hole. He also tattooed daddy's house around a girl's butthole. After 20 years, you get some weird opportunities, I guess. So far the most repulsive. After scrolling through the thread, there are surprisingly a lot of anus tattoos. Either I am really conservative, or I don't look a lot of people's anuses. In all fairness, I'd consider myself pretty opposite of conservative and there's no way I'd get a tattoo on or near my butthole. I'm not a tattoo artist, but my mom was in the early 2000s. She spoke and wrote Chinese very well, and she would tell me stories about people who got tattoos with the wrong meaning. Please share. Not a tattoo artist but heard this story last night at a party. One dude of my family is a firefighter. He'd take shower fully naked with other firefighter except one dude that would always come with underpants. They asked him why so and the guy replied that he got a tattoo on his butt that he wasn't proud of. He didn't wanted to show it until one day he felt confident enough to take the shower fully naked and reveal the tattoo he was so ashamed of. Turn out it was a dong doing skate. TLTR. Someone have a dong doing skateboard tattooed on his butt. I have realistic nipples tattooed on my butt cheeks. The artist had a page of about 50 different pictures of nipples. I picked the ones I wanted and haven't regretted my crack rack since. You'll regret it if you go to prison. Not an artist, but my best friend is. He sent me a snap of a girl with the Batman logo above her vagina with the quote "the Bat Cave." I immediately knew who it was and died of laughter. Now every man in town has visited the Bat Cave. Obligatory not a tattoo artist, but I got chat crap get banged tattooed on my butt. The tattoo artist couldn't stop laughing and ended up taking a picture of the tattoo. He didn't post the picture online, he just kept it to show to his mates. He also said it was the funniest tattoo he'd ever seen, or tattooed. I can't remember, so I got a weird sense of pride from that. I always heard talk crap get hit, but never this version. Not an actual tattoo artist, but I am a henna artist. A long time ago, when Obama was first running for president, I had an acquaintance ask me to henna Obama's face on his butt cheek. It was weird, haha. Interestingly, I avoid discussing politics with clients, so I never figured out if the guy liked Obama or hated him. Wish I could find a picture of it, haha. On the flip side, I have tattoos that, I'm sure, if my tattoo artist knew about this post, would end up here. I lived in Japan for a while and really wanted to get a traditional Arazumi Tibori hand pokes tattoo. Went to a few tattoo conventions and finally found an artist I liked who worked in the city I lived in, but he insisted he didn't do Tibori. Lots of artists told me that, though I suspected they weren't telling me the truth. I resigned myself to just getting a normal tattoo, but when I showed up, I could see a guy in the back getting the traditional style, so I said that's what I wanted and that's what I got. What I wanted was 2 kiku, Japanese chrysanthemums, one on each of my breasts, with my nipple in the middle. It took a while to explain this, since my Japanese was crap and the artist spoke very limited English. He agreed, and freehand drew each one, though he obviously thought I was crazy. It took forever, like 14 hours over 2 sessions. Hand poked is a much slower technique, and was, honestly, the most painful experience I've ever had, and I recently had a kid with no pain meds. Literally, excruciating. But they turned out great and I love them still. That was nearly 15 years ago and they still look great. Japanese chrysanthemums, one on each of my breasts. I recently had a kid. Tell your partner they get to make dad jokes when the kid inevitably eats a flower. It's a tattoo that I want. I want made in Japan on my butt, in red. My parents met there during Vietnam and I was conceived. I've asked about it, then chicken out. My tattoo guy told me a story of some guy who got his own name tattooed on his penis. In my head his name was Richard LOL. A friend of mine got a boom hoa from King of the Hill, with a Goku Super Saiyan 3 hair. He still loves it and to be honest so do I. Better than getting Bill tattooed on the back of your head, I tell I all it. Dude came in, got daughter's name on his butt. His daughter was in the room, holding his hand while I did it. Sometimes it takes a idle while to feel out what situations you don't want to enter into as a tattooer. Not a tattoo artist, but my artist told me about a friend of his who blacked out his nipples and a guy who had a dream in which he had Lego figures as thumbs, so he got them tattooed. A friend of a friend was blackout drunk and decided to get disrespectful down his left calf and freak down his right calf. I'm sure the tattooist tried to talk him out of it, but money is a heck of a drug. I'm surprised they did it. Every time I've gone into a tattoo shop, for piercings and tattoos, various shops, I've had to sign a consent waiver that included signing off that I was not high or drunk. My artist always told me the story of when someone got a bloody metal hanger with the words "Mama tried" on their back. Another separate story. Person got Abraham Lincoln on her back, like full back piece. I had joked that whomever had sex with her doggy style would feel like John Wilkes Booth when he came across her back. There was a group of adults that walked into my tattoo shop for one guy to get a tattoo. At the last second they changed their choice from a baby coming out of his butt to a dog on one of his butt cheeks. Definitely lost a bet. Not a tattoo artist, but a friend of mine got a tattoo of himself smiling and giving 2 thumbs up on his ass cheek. Why? God knows. We had a guy who came into the shop monthly to get the word whore tattooed on him. Always in different sizes and font script. Eventually we caved and asked what it was about. We assumed he just had a girlfriend partner. Turns out he'd misheard the name Thor and claimed to be a Norse pagan. We tried to tell him about the correct spelling, even showing him in books and online. He wasn't having it. I saw him a month or so ago, with whore tattooed on his forehead. My Norse pagan butt just cringed so hard I imploded. This guy walked in wanting a vagina tattoo on his butt, and while I was tattooing it he freaking shut it and it got everywhere, and I asked him to leave but he wanted it to get done, so I asked him if he can go to the bathroom and clean himself up. And he got up and he left a streak of crap on the floor. It was green BTW and we had carpet floors at the time. And when he got back he finished and never talked about that again. Until now. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.